Okay.
Okay. Hello, welcome to Moment of Truth. Today, our program, we're talking about career. My name is Nadia Sean, and we have the privilege of having my wonderful guest here, Dr. Jima. Dr. Jima is here. She's a pharmacist, and she's going to talk to you about what it means to have that career field and what it takes to be in that area. So I'll give our guest opportunity to introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about herself. So please.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be on the show. I finished pharmacy school in 1994. And when I finished, I first started with retail. I worked in retail for about 5 years, 6 years. And then I moved to the hospital. I did a mail order for some time. And then finally, I went into home infusion. And with home infusion, what we do is mostly it's all IV therapies. And with IV therapies, we take care of malnourished patients. It's basically whatever comes to you. Oncology, hospice. We also do acute, which is normally infections. But basically everything we do, it's on IV, IV therapy. And what is expected of us, I'm currently working with United Healthcare. And it's the specialty division, which is called Breover. And I've been there since then.
Well, welcome so much to the show. It's really definitely an honor to have you to talk
Thank
about
you.
your field. You know, you talk a lot about IV, but you know, when people think about pharmacies, you know, people think about the responsibility of pharmacists. So let's tell us a little bit about what is your responsibility as a pharmacist.
Okay, as a pharmacist, regardless of what field you're in, be it retail or hospital or home infusion, your goal is patient care.
Okay.
Yeah. And when a patient comes to you, they have illness, your goal is to ensure that by the time they leave, they understand the medication, why they're taking the medication, how they should take it, and the proper way to store it. And on a daily basis, mainly what you do is counseling. Yeah. And sometimes it goes beyond counseling the patient, because sometimes you have to, as a pharmacist, you have to have the empathy to understand the patient, because sometimes some of them, they've just been diagnosed and they are so upset about what they've been told they have. So you are more or less the person. Sometimes when they see you, you are the first person they attack.
Oh, wow.
So it's sometimes you most of the time you cannot take it personally.
Of course.
Because you have to think about the patient also being, it could be you, it could be a family member. So sometimes the anger towards you, it's not really an anger. It's just they've been diagnosed with something they didn't think they had, or it's scary to them. And then they have this prescription they brought to you, and then they have to start taking that.
Of course.
So you have to ensure them. Most of the time, it's a bit difficult accepting a diagnosis. So normally, you have to kind of be more, as the word is, probably more understanding. And then you just don't dispense medication.
Of course.
Although sometimes the work gets overwhelming, you don't really, but you really want to explain to them why they are taking the medicine.
Okay.
And I think when patients know why they are taking the medicine, they are more obliged to be compliant with the medication. So in a nutshell, that's what, it's not just, most people think pharmacy is just dispensing. But counseling is a major thing in the pharmacy, because when they come and just dispense, they go home. Sometimes it's supposed to be stored in the fridge.
And they don't know.
You know, I have stories I spend the whole day telling. Sometimes it's the router and they have no clue. And most of the time, most people don't read the paper.
That's true.
Yeah, they don't. And I don't blame them, because sometimes, you know, you'll have a hectic lifestyle. Sometimes they're already down, and that's not the last thing they're thinking about. Just give me my drugs and let me go home. So
That's
if they're able to understand, and you are the person that can provide that information for them. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what pharmacists we do.
I'm glad that you talk about the fear of of the medicine and the situation themselves.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, what is your typical day like as a pharmacist?
As a pharmacist, actually now I don't work in retail, so I don't have direct patient contact. But I talk to patients mostly on the phone. So a typical day is you go in the morning, you get, for me, you get a referral from the hospital or from the doctor's office. This Mr. X is coming home. They had this wound, it's not healing, so we want to dispense this for you, Mr. X. So per the doctor's orders, you check and see if the dose is appropriate for the patient. So you know you have to work out, we do a lot of math.
Okay.
You have to work out based on the patient's weight, weight and diagnosis, comorbidities.
Okay.
They may have diabetes, they may have high blood pressure, so you know what to dilute the medication in. Yeah. And then sometimes you have to find out if they have a caregiver or they don't, or if they have dexterity problems.
Okay.
So you know what mode of transport you're going to dispense the medication in.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, this all goes on. And during the day too, you have patients who will call in and ask you about clinical questions. And then you also have all these patients we dispense, we do labs.
Okay.
So you have to review the labs on a daily basis. So if the lab, something is not right, you have to make your interpretations and let the physician know. Sometimes you have to do those adjustments. And then you have to call the physician to discuss about the labs and also if there's a dose adjustment that's needed. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what, and it's mostly tied in with the counseling. So basically, that's what we do on a daily, my typical day.
That's good. So on the average, let's say you come to work, how many patients do you see on a day? 10, 12?
It depends on the day. And it depends on how many people are being discharged that day. There are some days you go in, you may have just about 5 or 4 referrals, but you may have a lot of calls, patient calling in, want to know, maybe they want to know when their therapy ends or want to ask questions, or maybe they didn't take the dose when they're supposed to know, so they want to know if they can skip a dose or they have to take the dose. So basically, it's hard to tell how many cases you're going to get a day, because you can get a call at the 9th hour saying that we have a patient that we're discharging home. And then also you can even get a call early in the morning, patient was admitted back in the hospital. You have to find out what happened. So basically you have to be ready to, you never know, but as you do it on a day, but you should not, it's very hard to tell what day you're going to expect.
So it's not a routine.
There's no routine.
And that's important for our viewers to know. Sometimes you think, you're a pharmacy, you work 8 to 9 or 9 to 5, and you just clock in and go and go about your merry way. Yeah. But we are talking about the career, the commitment that it takes to be able to take care of your patients. So what would you say, what's the most, something that you don't like about, the least thing that you don't like about your job?
Pretty much, pharmacy is something that it's a bit demanding. It is demanding, not a bit. So you kind of have to, everybody's way of adjusting is different. But you should not let the job, you have a family too. So you have to, it comes with experience. You have to be more disciplined and more organized. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a life. So you have to structure what works for you. Do a better job and still have a better family life. Because where I work, we're on call too. You can be called at 2 a.m. to go in. You can be called at any time to go in. And sometimes these patients, some of them are hospice, they're in pain. You can't say I wouldn't go in. And the thing is that if you let the job control you, it's hard to do a better job. So I always look at it as if, okay, it could be me, it could be my family member. So when someone calls me at 2 a.m. and oncology patient, they're in pain, or hospice patient, they're in pain, I just go in. It's tiring, but if you have to kind of put yourself in that person's shoes, it makes the job easier than always stress. Oh God, it makes your job hard, and I think it applies to every job, every profession. You know, you have to. That's why I always say you have to love what you're doing. If you don't, it makes it tougher. So basically, it's like any other profession. Yeah.
So if you're tuning in, we are on Moment or Two talking about career. And we have Dr. Jima here, and we're talking about career in pharmacy. And she is very honest about the demanding task that it takes to be a pharmacy. And she's talking about even balancing your work and your career and being on call. So if you're thinking about having a job in pharmacy, be prepared to remember that it's not an 8 to 5 job or 9 to 5 job. It is on call also. So thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you talk about the thing you don't like. So what is your passion about? You say you have to love what you do. So what really driven you, or what motivated you to be in the field?
Since I've been a kid, I've always wanted to take care of people. Okay. I was the one that, I remember when I was in boarding house in Ghana, every time I had all my medications, and everybody in the dorm always came to me. They have a headache. And every time my parents and I and my family were traveling, I make sure I pack a first aid bag. I've always been like that. So I guess it was in me. But some people realize that late in life, and some people early in life. So I think it varies. But you have to. And one thing, too, about pharmacy, or in the medical field, and I think it applies to every field, you have to keep up. You have to read. You can't go because things change every day.
It does. Today
you wake up, they approve this drug. You have to, and the things that now with the internet, a lot of people, before they come to you, you already read about the medication.
The side effects.
They know, yes. So if you don't, my family always tease me that I always like to go to school, read. But that's the only way you can keep up. It's a lot, but sometimes if you can't even keep up, at least you know where to look for the information, or you have an idea. So basically, it's just if you make it your routine. I mean, it's nothing a genius. I mean, it's nothing anyone cannot do, but you have to have the passion. It's demanding. So if you don't have the passion, and if you don't have the passion, it's very hard to do the work. But in the long run, it's rewarding financially and emotionally. It does, yeah. So it's worth it, yeah.
So with us talking about pharmacy, what are some of the problems that people have to deal with? Because sometimes you think about the career field and you think about the changing dynamics, apart from studying. What are some of the challenges that one have to deal with?
The major challenges, the insurance companies. Insurance companies. Because what happens, this person needs this medication, the insurance will not approve it. And these drugs are so expensive. And you can see someone deteriorating because they cannot afford the medication. And these medications, without insurance, even with the copay assistance programs, it's just amazing. And just to be approved for a drug, especially in the infusion, it's just. But one thing is that there's a lot of help out there. Most people don't realize it. But there's a lot of help out there. I mean, to assist you in acquiring some medication. Sometimes they have assistance programs, but most people don't know it. And then they kind of go bankrupt paying for their medication. Health. Yeah. So that's the major. And the other thing is that some people it's all customer service. Some people just have a bad day. They come and they just want to ruin your day. But, you just brush it off. Because if they ruin your day, it affects your day, the whole day. And they are gone. And you are the one
suffering.
Yeah. So basically, the problem we have is the insurance coverage and the price of the medication. Because and then you end up, the physician ends up giving another medication that really would not help.
It's not
but just because
it's cheaper.
Yes, cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically the major hurdle. And then the work schedule. But as I said, you have to be, if you are disciplined, because if you don't have structure, the work schedule is hurt. You have to have the structure so you can balance it out. Yeah.
That's good. You know, we talk about the career itself. Now let's talk about how did you get from where you are, from boarding school, all the way to be a pharmacist? Because I know it's a lot of schooling. So how long did it take you, and what were some of the steps that you took to get from where you, to get to the point that you are?
Okay, and here, when you come, you do undergrad for 2 years, and then you branch off into the professional field.
Okay.
So you go into pharmacy. It's in now. When I got out of school, it's been 25 years now,
Okay.
and things have changed because they keep modifying it.
Of course.
But I think now it's 6 years in the professional field, and then you come up with your doctorate.
Okay.
And I always say that go a step further because there's so many pharmacists out there. So sometimes it takes about a year or two to add on and do something makes you stand up out. Yeah, and one good thing about this country, you do not have to, you know how in Ghana, you have to be at home, it's hard to work and go to school. This country, sometimes it's tiring. You come home, you have to stay till about 2 a.m. and studying, but it pays off at the end.
It does.
Yeah. So it depends on but the basic pharmacy degree, it's about 6 years, depending on what path you take. If you're going to go straight and you don't repeat, it's 2 undergrad and then it's 6 years you're done.
Okay.
But I always tell people that if it's taking you more than that, it doesn't matter. Because when you get out of school, the degree you hold doesn't say it took you 6 years or 8 years.
That's true.
You finish it's a pharmacy degree. So if you determine that's what you want to do, don't let anything deter you from doing that.
Okay. So when you get your undergrad, did you get your undergrad degree in chemistry or biology, or what did you get your undergrad?
You can choose to do that.
Okay.
I went straight to pharmacy.
Okay.
Some people choose to do that. They go and get a degree and then they come back. I went straight path. When you go straight path, it's about 6 years.
Okay.
But some people do and then work and then they go back. To me, I think that it's harder to break and go back, but it's up to you, whatever you want to do. Your decision, yeah.
Okay.
Just make sure you come back and finish.
Yeah. So like nowadays, like you said, you finished 25 years ago. So nowadays there are schools that actually do a pharmacy program that you apply into the pharmacy program straight from high school, or how does that work?
You have to do what they call liberal arts. You have to go in first at the entry level. But most schools, you go straight in pharmacy school. But the first 2 years is mainly liberal arts. Yeah. Okay. And the sciences. You have to take the basic. And then when you qualify, then you move into and that's normally the first 2 years. Okay. So once you qualify and then you sit for the exam, it's called PCAT, and then you get into BSAT, and you get into the pharmacy field. Okay. Yeah, but now they have it all together, which is good. So you just have to keep your grades up, and then you still be in the program. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, moment of truth, if you're watching, we're talking about career in pharmacy. So you have to literally, I know University of Maryland has a pharmacy program. Yeah. So it's good to do your research and find out what program, how they prepare you towards the program. So if it's straight ahead, like Dr. Jim is saying that you literally need to make sure that you keep up your grades. Yeah. And that way that when you're in the program, you can stay in the program. Yeah. And I think most times, most people don't realize that the program itself is selective. Not everybody who apply get into the program. So you may apply once and you don't get in, don't give up.
Yes. And the thing is that pharmacy, there are a couple of core courses you should be good at. Okay. And this is the sciences, and that's math, physics, biology, and then you have to do, mainly you do a lot of chemistry. Okay. Yeah. But I always say that sometimes some people pick up early in life, some people don't pick up early. So don't give up if you fail one class. Okay. Sometimes you have to go and get a tutor or something, and sometimes you'll be surprised. It helps you move up. So just don't give up if that's what you want to do. And sometimes you start, and there's so many avenues in pharmacy. There's no fields in pharmacy. Pharmacy, you can work for the manufacturing company. Okay. You go on to do your PhD. You don't have to practice pharmacy itself. So there's so many. If you give up, you've lost a lot. Yeah. So once you determine, but you have to have a strong base in the sciences. Yeah.
So moment of truth, don't give up on your dreams, but really have a plan in place. And you talk about this different field in pharmacy. You know, people always think about pharmacy as, like you said, dispenser of medication. But tell us more about the different areas when it comes to different specialties in pharmacy.
Actually, it's amazing, so broad.
Okay.
Every field of medicine, you can specialize in pharmacy in.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You can go into OB and you deal with OB. Every field you can specialize if you want to. Because you can work in an OB clinic, you dispense OB medications. You can work in the pain clinic, you dispense narcotics for like hospice patients and oncology patients. You can you can specialize in chemo. You can dispense chemo meds. You specialize in that. And then what I do is I work in home infusion. And home infusion is more like a combination of retail and hospital.
Okay.
So, but most of our meds are IV. Actually, all our meds are IV. But when you take a patient, you are responsible for everything they're on. So if I'm dispensing an antibiotic for a patient, and when I'm doing the lab, I have to check their glucose, I have to check everything. And then we have pharmacists who are diabetic educators.
Okay.
We have pharmacists who work. So every field of medicine, you can specialize in pharmacy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is important.
It's not just retail.
That is definitely important, because sometimes, sometimes people don't realize that the fundamental things that you need to do and the areas that you need to specialize in. So don't think you're going to be bored, because people see, oh, I see pharmacies at the CVS. And so they always say, oh, of all the pharmacy at the CVS. No, different places. So think about it. So if you like the challenge of being the field, you're good in math, and you're also good in science, and you want to do patient care, definitely you can be a pharmacy.
Yeah, and then even in retail, you can specialize. That pharmacists in retail who give inoculations, they give, you know, you go and get your pneumococcus vaccines, they're trained that. So my goal is don't stick to one thing, because you limit yourself. And the things that sometimes, unfortunately, we have to do extra. That makes you stand out. It makes you demand. Because now they've opened a lot of pharmacy schools in this area. And you have to stand out. And the only way you can do it, you have to do additional.
Additional skills.
Yeah, you have to, yeah.
Okay. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about using your talent to serve God. As Christian, we always say, I want to do something. And then you have the desire for it and you have the ambition, but somehow you don't get all the advice, and you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the mentor. So we are telling you today, Moment of Truth, to really ask questions. Get people who are in the field, so that way they could tell you some of the challenges that they are facing and some of the things that will make you a better pharmacist. Because at the end of the day, you always want to be good at the job that you're doing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So when you're thinking about some of the, what kinds are some of the decisions that one has to make when you are in the field? Like you talk about being selective and choosing different areas. What are some of the decisions people have to make just to make sure that you keep yourself current and you also keep yourself, really to be out there and make yourself competitive?
The main things that you have to keep up with the new therapies, new inventions in the medical field, you have to keep up. And the only way to keep up is read.
Okay.
You have to, because every day and now things evolve so much. This drug is approved. And even when you're at home, you look on the commercial, this drug, and when a patient comes in front of you, they've seen the commercial. And then they ask you and you have no clue what they're talking about.
Especially if you don't watch TV.
Yeah. And the thing is that most of these patients, now you go to Google, you type the drug in, it tells you, this has this side effect. So you kind of have to convince, because some patients will come and say, I saw this symptom, I'm not taking the medicine.
That's true.
So you have to inform the importance of taking it. And of course, even water has side effects. Yeah. But most physicians, they weigh the benefits and the side effects, and then they choose for you. And then unfortunately, sometimes you just pray. God is what takes care of us.
God is merciful.
Yeah. So mainly the thing is, you have to have the knowledge. And you can't be okay with just graduating out of school. You have to keep up. Yeah, you have to keep. So that's the main thing you have to do most of the time.
Okay, that's good. So how does keeping up affect, sometimes our job affects our lifestyle. So keeping up with all those things, does it also affect your lifestyle, change your family dynamics and everything like that?
Yeah, sometimes there's some it does. I won't quote it. It does, but that's where discipline comes in. You always have to put your family 1st. You know, I always tell when I'm on call, we have to go to a function. I'm putting my things in the bag in the car because I wouldn't say because I'm on call I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
I used to when I started, but it doesn't deter you. Either call you drive from where you are to the place, your workplace, and do whatever you have to do and send it to the patient. So it comes to the bottom line is you being disciplined because you can't neglect your family. Sometimes some days it gets hectic, but you cannot. You have to put your family first. Yeah.
So moment of truth, you have to balance the work-life balance. And I think one of the things most people have to understand is integrate your work into your lifestyle. So sometimes people do 50-50, but sometimes you can't get a 50-50.
No. There's some days you cannot.
Yes.
And you make up for the other days you can. So,
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. So when you think about the current issue and trends in your field, what are some of the things that you are aware of and some of the things that you think change the dynamics of your job in the future?
The current trends now is mainly keeping up with the new medications and coming out. And also, now with the insurance companies, you have to, because sometimes they don't approve something, you have to be able to come up with something alternative which is equally good. So that's what makes you stand out. You have, and that it's a lot of research. And also now, going back to the issue of trying to do additional, because now there's a lot more pharmacy schools out there. So a lot of more pharmacies are coming out. So that's very challenging, because if you just come out of pharmacy and you don't, most people are now going into doing their residency. But you have to do something. Just coming out of pharmacy school, you're not guaranteed. You are, but might not be what you want to do. And sometimes you take, and then you don't stop there. And I remember once when I was going through, there was a guy that was about 70-something. He was still in school.
70 years old?
Yeah, he was still in school.
In pharmacy school?
Pharmacy school.
Moment of truth. So 70, you can still go to school.
So he had been working for a while. He got out a long time ago, and he decided, okay, I'm going back to school to add on to. So you can go into pediatrics. You can go into geriatrics. I mean, there's so many avenues there, but you have to have the passion. Don't just because. And the thing is that one thing too, if you think, okay, someone comes to tell you, oh, there's money in here in geriatrics, I'm going. If you don't have the passion for old people, don't go there.
Don't go. Don't chase money.
Yeah.
Do not change the
it's
dollar
not rewarding because you come home every day angry, and you're angry at your patients. It's not worth. So those are because now those are the challenges we're having now. So that's why we have to separate and do additional to make us stand out in the crowd. Yeah.
I like the fact that you keep saying there's a lot of pharmacists out there, or there's a lot of pharmacy schools out there. I think in our community, most times when you think about the healthcare profession, we tend to think about it in separations. But we don't think about pharmacy as one of the areas that people want to go to, or we don't encourage. And so people that are listening, our Moment of Truth, so you are saying that there's a lot of pharmacy schools out there, which doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of our people are applying to the pharmacy school. So what will you tell them when people are applying to the pharmacy schools initially and they're thinking, I'm going to go to that area? What are some of the things that they need to do to make sure that they get into the best schools to prepare them to stand out when they finished?
It starts from high school.
Okay.
You have to make sure you're doing well in your sciences.
Okay.
And it depends on what county you live in. Always make sure you're in the honors program.
Okay.
Because sometimes it helps. And the thing is that one thing I always tell people is that you have to pick up some more classes. And it gives you the opportunity to some people do so well that before they go to college, they've have some classes already taken.
AP classes already.
Yeah. So it's going back to your question, it's basically just having the passion. If it's not your passion, don't do it. There's so many. Pharmacy is not the only profession out there. There's so many great professions out there. You have to have the passion for it. Okay. It's not. It's very rewarding financially, but if you don't have the passion, don't do it. So the goal is having the passion and having the drive to do it. It's one thing having the passion, but if you don't want, it's not going to be easy. Okay. It's a lot of work. But I always look at it that I'd rather suffer for a few years and then gain for the rest of my life than always struggling the rest of my life. I mean, you look, okay, 6 years of my life, I can put it down. I'm going to really focus on this. And you'll be surprised how fast that 6 or 7 years or 8 years comes by so quickly. So it all depends. So you have to, because you have to, as we discussed earlier, you have to have a strong background of sciences, and that starts from high school. So if you know there's something you're not good in, high school they have these counselors. You go and talk to them. But one thing I also say that these counselors, sometimes they put us in a box.
They do. They really do. Moment or truth.
Yeah, they put us in a box.
Remember, the counselors can put you in a box. If you go there, you give them half information, they'll give you half ideas.
Yeah, so you have to talk with your parents. You have to also know your passion. So when you go, your counselor tells you this is what, you can also tell them this is what I want to do. Because they kind of tend to put us in a box.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you don't want, so don't just walk to your counselor's office and just say, okay, what can you, no, you have to have a background, what you're interested in, and what you can start do. If in high school you can start volunteering, and if you want pharmacy, you can start volunteering in the pharmacy. Okay. But now you have to get certification. But before then you could. But now, but even the certification is not. It's math to pass to get a certificate. It's a couple of calculations. So if you're good, you should be able to do it. Okay. So once you have, even if you volunteer in the field, you don't work as a pharmacy tech. You volunteer in a hospital, and it kind of gives you an idea. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you have, before you go and see the counselor, otherwise they put us in a box. You don't want that. Yeah.
I like the fact that you say certification. So, moment of truth, you can actually be a pharmacy tech.
Yes.
And get the feel for the broad area of pharmacy before you actually go to and spend 6 years in that education and find out that I really didn't like it because I didn't realize what it entailed.
Yeah. Because I was almost all pharmacists started as
a pharmacy tech.
I mean, I used to do it during vacation when I was on school was out. I worked as a pharmacy tech, and that kind of, it helps a lot. It does help a lot. So I worked in that field, so I knew, I kind of going back, because when you get to your protocol sections, you kind of already know some of the medications, and you have to know how to, because sometimes they give you case scenarios to discuss or work on, and you've already done that. Yeah. Yes. So I worked as a tech for a while when I was in school.
That's good. I think most times people are always, our community tends to be afraid of the unknown. So the unknown factor, and we don't ask the questions. So I'm asking, if you are watching and you're a young person and you're thinking about joining or going to a pharmacy, what is the pharmacy tech? Because everybody knows what CNA does, but what does it take to get a pharmacy tech certification?
They have this exam you have to go for couple number of hours of training, and that is what they've changed it. Okay. So I'm not sure how much hours you have. I think it was 30 or something. I can't remember. And once you get that training, then you go and sit for an exam. Okay. And then when you pass that exam, you get a certification. And then with that certification, every 2 years you have to renew it. Okay. So every 2 years you're expected to sit in write an exam. It's an online exam. It's not something you can. Once you have they are 10 credit. I think pharmacy is technician. I think it's 20 credit hours, depending on what state. Every state has its own number of credit and the requirements. Some states will tell you that you have to have, among your credits, you have to have one of HIV or something. You have a drug counseling. So you can go online and pay for it and listen and then because he wants to keep you updated with it. So, and then you become a pharmacy tech. But what I tell people is that pharmacy tech is not something that should be permanent.
Okay. It's a stepping stone in the right direction.
Yeah, people go there and they're stuck. I have pharmacy techs I've worked with, and we were doing this job for 30 years. I mean, it's a job you do to move on,
Okay.
And not even when you have to move on.
Okay.
You don't. That's like, it's something you do to get to pharmacy school. I have pharmacy techs who end up in nursing, other medical fields, but that's not a permanent job. Yeah.
Okay. And that's important, moment of truth. You know, some of the fundamental things that we do, we tend to stabilize ourselves in that area and becomes the job. But it's not a career ladder, because you can be a pharmacy tech for 30 years. It doesn't guarantee you a degree as a pharmacist. You still have to do the education. And that is important for our viewers to understand that, anything that you do to better your future, you definitely need to invest in your education.
Yeah, and techs, mainly the job they do, the duties is they assist the pharmacist to dispense medication. They don't do the counseling. The pharmacy does the counseling, but they basically assist the pharmacist to fill, label, and dispense the medication. And then some of them are they've done it so much that they can really tell you what counseling, but by law they don't have the license to do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So what are some of the common career paths in this field? Because we talk about, the broad background that pharmacy provide, but if you have to channel people to some of the career path, what do you think people should be doing? I know you talk about PhD. Do you think most people, when they do pharmacy, do you think they should do into their profession of research, or what some of the stuff that people you think they should be doing?
It boils down to you what you want. And as I said, every field of medicine, you can specialize in pharmacy then. So if whilst you're in pharmacy school, or when you finish pharmacy, as you start working retail, retail pharmacy, some of them, they give inoculations, they give so in retail even there's a specialty on that. So if you start working, or you want to go into pharmacy after your degree, you have to have a passion. Everybody, what you want to do.
Okay.
So that will lead you to that path. So if you decide I want to work with geriatrics, we have pharmacy, nursing home, pharmacist comes in, clinical pharmacists, similar to what I do, because I'm considered a clinical pharmacist. They go into, people don't realize, the nursing home, pharmacist comes in and read the charts, make sure the meds are dispensed the right way. So so every chart you read, you get paid for that. If you go to psychiatric, there's a pharmacist, because I did psych for a while, because when they're doing therapy sections, the doctors are, you sit in to make sure the drug they dispense is doing the right thing. When you go to PEDS, Children's Hospital, the pharmacist there that dispense PEDS meds. So there's so many water, and then some of them also go into insurance. Some pharmacists work for insurance. They determine if this drug, the formulary, should be approved or not. Pharmacists are the one that goes through the pharmacist is the one that signs it off. So it varies, and some pharmacists are in manufacturing. It's not just manufacturing. They work for most of the manufacturing companies. Most of them are pharmacists. Yeah. So they are more into research.
Okay.
And then name it, whatever field of medicine.
You can see pharmacy there.
Yeah.
And you can have them even FDA.
Yeah. There's a lot of friends, people I know work there, and they approve the drugs for it to come. And their pharmacists approve the drugs for it to come out. So it all and you can go to NIH, the pharmacy and research. So it all depends what you have a passion for. Sometimes, if you're lucky, the first thing you pick up that you don't get, but you can always move on to the next thing. Yeah.
Okay. And that's important, because I think sometimes we get settled in an area that we hate, and we think that is the job, that is the job. And so if somebody especially if somebody's mentoring you, and you can tell that they don't like their job, don't let their bad experience affect your decision. Yes. Yeah. Because, sometimes it's their experience that is, clouding their judgment. So think about it. If you really want to do the pharmacy field, talk to other people and get some more insight. And that will give you, especially if that's your passion, if that's your passion. And so I really appreciate that there's different areas that people can
So
look
many
at.
different areas. You can even go into sales because most of the drug reps that come out, they talk. Like manufacturing companies hire them. They come and talk to you about their medication.
Of course.
It's pharmacy. So it's pharmacists. That's another field of. So there's so many avenues out there, and it's not just most people when they say pharmacy, they think it's retail. What do you call it? You just dispense. They call it lick and taste them, but no, that's not it. There's so many things. Pharmacy and even retail. There's so many avenues. You know.
That's
So just
good.
don't limit yourself.
And that's important also when we're thinking about our future as the healthcare field is so changing. It's good to figure out where you find yourself and how best you can situate yourself for the future. So that way you don't get lost in the changing dynamics of healthcare. So that's really important. So what makes you so interested in that field, and what began your career? I know you talk about boarding schools and everything else, but did you have somebody in your family who was a pharmacy, or what made you begin your career in that field?
Actually, none of my parents, none of them were in pharmacy or medicine, but my dad did sciences.
Okay.
He did forestry. And my mom went into hotel management.
Okay.
So the closer I got was my dad in sciences, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so moment your truth. Even if your parents are not in that field, don't let it deter you. Because sometimes we think, and I think we are guilty of that. We look at our family and we want to be in the field that they are in. And so if you don't find anybody in the family, in your immediate family, who's in that field, then you think like, I cannot do it. So you are telling us, moment your truth, that even if your family is not in that area, but you have the passion for it, then you have the responsibility to.
And I always say pharmacy is not the only great profession out there. There's so many. I'm here talking because that's what I know. But it doesn't mean that everybody, if you don't do pharmacy, it's one of them.
Okay.
And one thing I like about you're able to be independent, and it's rewarding. I mean, financially, emotionally, if you love the job.
If you love the job.
Yeah.
If you don't love the job, don't choose
do
it. And I think about talent. So what are some of the soft skills that you think helps you to be in the field? Because you talk about patient care, personality-wise. Do you have to have some of those soft skills that, apart from your education, that you think those are some of your talents that helps you to deal with the patient and that deal with your clients in an effective way?
Yeah, well, of course, nowadays you have to know the IT skills. Yeah. But the most important, apart from your profession, you have to have good communication skills.
Okay.
That's the key. You could be an A-plus pharmacist if you don't have that communication field. It won't work. Because you have to be able to communicate with the patients. And as I said earlier, when they come in, some of them are really upset. So you have to be able to relate to the patients. So you have to have a good person. You may not like that person, but it's a job you have to do. But most of the time, you have to, as I always keep saying, you have to think about the patient could be a family member, and then put yourself in that person's shoe, and then you realize how important it is to really listen and pay attention to the patient. So mainly it's just communication skills that you have to be able to do. Because without that, you cannot. Yeah.
That's good. And I think it's also important. So if you're watching us on the email, if you have any questions, you can ask us on 240-200-9717. And we're just talking about career in pharmacy. And of course, our guest has been really very patient in telling us the challenges of being in the field, but also the reward that one finds if one is really interested in that field. And, it has, at any given time in your career field, you can always grow. And she's telling us about some of the areas that you can grow in and some of the challenges. So if you are watching and you have been a pharmacy for 25 years and you want to change, what are some of the things that you can do to change? And that's why she's telling us that you can branch out If you have been doing pediatrics, now you can branch out to something else.
Yeah.
But you definitely have to have a passion.
Yeah.
And I think it's also good to let our young viewers know that, there's so many things out there when it comes to the healthcare field. But if you really want to do something, you have to take the time and study and do your research. So if you have to let people know in terms of your own challenges, your own struggles, what were some of the hurdles that you personally took to get to your destination and where you are?
Yeah. When I got out of school, I didn't know there were so many avenues of pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through retail. I really did not like retail.
Okay.
It was the same thing every day. I mean, there's no challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it for a couple of years, and I did not know. I mean, no one told me I would have gone straight from school to go into another field that I liked.
Okay.
So one day I just got up and I said, there must be something, because I went to work. There's some days were good days, but it wasn't really
fulfilling.
Yeah, and there was no challenge. It was routine, doing the same thing over and over and over again. And the things that you don't get to, like I'm dispensing drug. I don't know whether I don't see the labs. I don't know whether the drug is working or it's not working.
Oh, really?
Because in retail you don't check that.
You don't see those things.
Because the patients are diabetic, or patient has high blood pressure, or patient has, name it, and they come in, they're taking these meds, but I don't see whether it's helping or it's not helping, So I said, I need some clinical. So that's how I volunteered for about 3 to 4 months at my first clinical position. I wasn't paid. I was just a volunteer, just to be able to kind of get my feet wet. And then those days it was very hard to get in, because they always talk about, that's one thing that kills me. You don't have experience. But my thing is, if you don't take me, how am I going to get experience?
Yeah.
So that's how I got into the door. I got in, and after working, then I kind of build up. Yeah. So as you said, what a typical day is, you walk in, you don't know what you're getting. You could get a PN, you can get a malnourished patient, you can get a hospice, you never know. Yeah, so that's one thing I like about it. Yeah.
So you like the challenge. Some people like routine. Some people are so sad that they like routine. But you like the challenge, so that's why you went to clinical, so that you will see different patients and interact with different people. And I like the fact that you talk about seeing how the medications, the results of the medication, and follow up on the patient. And I think that's important when you're thinking about our gift and our talent. I think that is where your talent comes in too, because you want to see the whole patient. And sometimes we get lost in just checking the boxes when it comes to our patients. So if you are a person, you're doing your job and you realize you're just checking the boxes, then you know that you are not using all the talent that God has given you. So you may need to branch out and go somewhere so that you will feel like you are fulfilling, your purpose and also being able to give to your patients.
Yeah, and I think it's individual. Some people just are comfortable. I wasn't. So it doesn't mean that branch of pharmacy was not good. It's very rewarding. Some people I have a friend that does been doing retail for a long time. He is excellent. The customers come, they love him. He loves it. So that's what he wants. Doesn't mean retail is not good. It's great. He is excellent, So, and a lot of students come through him. He has a very good, strong communication skill. So that's his passion, but doesn't mean, and one thing one field of pharmacy doesn't mean it's better than the other.
Of course.
It's what you want is where it stirs you to. So yeah, so it doesn't, I'm not condemning one field.
We are just educated.
Yeah.
So moment of truth, we're just telling you that you have to find your passion.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something and you realize that it becomes so routine that you're not motivated, then it's about time to do a self-assessment and realize that what are some of the challenges that you can challenge yourself, and that's important because our career is part of our life.
Yes.
And we should make sure that we incorporate the positive aspect of it and not feel like I'm just working. Sometimes people just go to work and they're just working.
Yeah.
And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be fulfilled. and it's important to
And
feel
it affects your whole being
it
too.
does.
It does. Yeah. And going back to the pharmacy tech, I'm always telling people, if you don't want to, if you don't or you cannot go to pharmacy school, you don't stop there at the pharmacy tech. I know pharmacy techs who are specialized. There's so many specialization you can do. They are inspectors.
Okay, okay.
You know, you can work for the board of pharmacy.
Oh,
They have
okay.
pharmacy techs there. People don't realize all this. You can't just be as CV as they always have clocking. But you have to do a couple of degrees to specialize. Board of pharmacy, you go there. There's some of them are pharmacy techs. They go to pharmacies. Some of them even go at a certain level and inspect. You know, so there's so many branches. You just have to. I always preach. My daughter said sometimes, "Mom's too much," but I always say, you never stop. We're sure with education, you never stop at one. You have to keep going. I mean, sometimes you don't get it, but you have to keep reading and expose yourself. There's so many avenues there. People don't even realize the pharmacy techs they can go forward.
Oh no, and I'm learning. You know, and that's what Moment of Truth is about. It's about educating yourself and asking questions. Because if you never ask, you never know.
Yeah.
And sometimes we were just talking about it before the program started. That in our community we don't share a lot of information, and sometimes somebody know, and because nobody asks, they don't share. And if you have opportunity to ask, you know, so if you're out there and you're thinking about something, ask the question, because the person who have the knowledge may not be willing, or well, I won't say willing, but may not have the opportunity to talk to you if you personally don't approach them and ask the question.
Yeah,
So,
because I found that you can inspectors, but you have to. It's not just the pharmacy. You have to add a couple of.
of course,
yeah.
of course, of course.
And and I mean, there's so many avenues there. So it's not. I always say pharmacy is great. I mean, to me, and I think I love it because I have so much passion for it. But that's just not the only profession out there.
Oh, that's true.
Anything you do, if you do good, you're going to be rewarded.
Yeah, that is true. So when you think about it, do most people get into the field at the entry level? Like you talk about, most people, you went in through retail. Is that the entry level for pharmacy? Oh,
No.
okay. Okay.
There's so many, but the thing is that retail is so common.
Oh, okay.
People don't tell you. As I said, I didn't even know about all these avenues. I wouldn't have even gone to retail.
Okay.
Most people, most people don't know. So you finish school, you're looking for a job at CVS, you're looking for retail section, which is great. I'm not saying this, but if you have other passions, I mean, there's so many avenues. You can go on and work for a drug company, work for a hospital, you work for nursing home. I mean, there's so much, but most of the fields, you kind of have add on a specialized in something. You have to do a little, and it doesn't. If you're passionate for it, I mean, once you have good health and good sound of mind, you can do anything. Yeah.
That's good.
So it's not just entry level. It's not just because I've seen people go straight to the hospital. And then some people, and the hospital even, there are two divisions. There's a clinical section, and then there's like hospital pharmacy. They are in the retail, more like dispensing. So it varies. It's not just one.
That's good. You know, when we think about advice, you know, when you were going, do you have mentors that mentor you, or did you have people that were like telling you things, or how did it help you?
Actually, it was mainly my parents.
Okay.
I told my dad had a strong science background, but when I came here first, when I was in pharmacy school, there wasn't a lot of Ghanaians there. I remember, I think we're just in a class of about 40, we're just 4.
Okay.
So when I went to school, there was not a lot of, and I didn't know a lot of people when I came here. I came straight to school. I never lived here, so I didn't know a lot of people in the field. It was after I got out of the field, I met people. So I wasn't that lucky, but now, and that time the church I went to, we didn't have a lot of, they were farmers, but they were not Ghanaians, you know, and I knew some people, but I learned also most of it from my pharmacist. That I told you I was a technician. So I asked people, and then my instructors, I ask questions, and I had the opportunity to work in the pharmacy. That's where I got my exposure and experience.
Okay.
But per se, my time, I really didn't know a lot of people here. I came straight to school, so I really didn't interact with a lot of people here. So I didn't have that opportunity. Like how most people are already here, and so so I didn't really get that opportunity.
So if you're watching Moment of Truth, and I think it's good if you can get people to mentor you. And so,
Yeah.
what will you advise people when it comes to a field that they're interested in? Do you advise them to get a mentor within that field? And how do you go about it? How do you think they should go about it in that area?
I think which I think that's the way to go. It's if you find a field, be pharmacy or be something else you're interested, you do a little research on yourself. It tells you, because nowadays you go on type Google and type, it tells you all about the profession they're having, and then you kind of sometimes so that you're not put in a box. You kind of have to do your own research yourself, and then it's always a plus to get someone who's willing to share with you. And because because honestly, most of the things I've learned in the pharmacy field, I didn't learn in school. I mean, because part of what is about less than 50% of what you learn in school is what you apply in the real world. Yeah. So if you have someone who can at least relate to, tell you experiences, and the best teacher is you doing it yourself. So if you have the opportunity to go into, and even if it's volunteer, people think it's why waste my time. Volunteer doesn't mean you have to do 8 to 5.
No.
You can choose, I'm coming in at 2. I'm coming at 1. But one thing I always tell people, when you're going to be volunteering, act as if it's your job.
Be consistent. Be professional.
Act as if, because people don't realize networking. I've had the advantage of networking helps. People volunteer and they go to work anytime. Act as if, I tell my daughter, act, and she does that. You have to, because you have the references you need after school.
That's true.
It opens doors.
That is true.
You'd be surprised, even the cleaner there, act. I've had jobs that my technicians have given me reference to get jobs.
Wow.
So you have to take that cockiness and everything off. And it does. Act as a professional. If you're even volunteering, act as a professional. And you'd be surprised. And I always tell people, which they did not tell me, you start looking for a job before you graduate.
That's true.
People did not tell me that. And if I had to go back with what I know, I mean, I like what I'm doing now, but there are so many skills. And I swear with us foreigners, we come here, or even if you're born here, they don't tell you. You still have to start looking for a job before you get out of school. And even if and volunteer somewhere that you want to work.
Of course. That's why it's called internship.
Yeah.
Intern.
And then you have to, when you go in, act as if the job is yours. They're paying for you. And you'll be surprised you use those people as your references. So basically that's what, in a nutshell, that's what you need to do. Yeah. Don't wait till you're finished school to look for it.
Then you are behind the power curve.
Yeah.
Because they need experience.
Yeah.
And you don't know anything.
And once you volunteer, even if it's 1 hour a week, that's experience. No one asks.
Because you can put it on your resume.
Yeah. And when you're volunteering, look for somewhere that's reputable.
Yes.
Don't go and volunteer somewhere that it's not. Somewhere it's
reputable.
well known. And it adds on.
Exactly.
And even with college, high school students, I always say that start volunteering. These summer programs, volunteer at. I'm giving an example. I'm in the medical field, so that's why my examples are all going to be.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
but it doesn't mean that's what. Let's say in pharmacy, I'm going to look for a hospital. If I want to go medicine, I'm going to look for John Hopkins. I'm going to look for NIH. I'm going to look for children and volunteer in the summer. I have my daughter working at John Hopkins, volunteering. She's not being paid, but we drive her there every time during the summer break. So by the time you have you get, you know.
It looks good on your resume. You volunteer at John Hopkins. Believe me, that's your
and
door.
And then it opens before you get to college. don't wait till you get to college to
Yes.
do that. So if that's what you want to do, if you want to go into law firms, look for law firms that in law, law firms that are well known. Volunteer there while you're in high school. Don't wait till you
Don't
finish
wait.
it. Yeah. So by the time you get in, they already know you on the first name. So if you need them as reference, they can.
Do it.
So that's basically what you have to. You have to start. See, we start late.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
You have to start early before you even get to college.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So once you do that, you're already set.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's important, moment of truth. It breaks my heart when I see our kids and they're like, oh, I'm working at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. And you say, what are you studying? They're like, IT. And you're like, no, thank you very much. You need to be volunteering. So the time is supposed to be volunteering, you are working. And at a job that is not part of your field. So volunteer in your field. So that way, when you finish, you have the skill set you need.
Because you already have that. Because now the job market is very competitive.
Very, very.
And they're looking for experience. But my thing is that if you don't hire me, how am I going to get it? You can do your McDonald's job, but find maybe one day in the week and work. If it's, what do you call it, pharmacy, work, volunteer pharmacy. If it's going to be IT, find an IT firm, volunteer. People like to use free labor.
Of course.
So
Everybody likes something that's free.
So, and then all I tell them, when you go in, please take the job of volunteer as if it's your regular job.
Take it serious.
Be a professional. That's how you get your point out.
Dress appropriate, act appropriately, and you'll be there.
And you can still keep your McDonald's job, but just that you have to kind of wait. And then you start this before you even go to college. Yeah.
Because by the time you're in college, you actually will get a paid job.
Yes.
Volunteering.
Yeah.
They will call it internship, but they will still give you stipends.
Yeah.
And that's what you want when you are in college. So, our time is fast spent. I really enjoy speaking to our guests, and really I've learned a lot. So if you're watching us, this is Moment of Truth. We are talking about a career in pharmacy. So I'll give our guests an opportunity. If there's anything you want our viewer, if there's one thing that you want our viewer to know as they're watching us, if one thing that they can take away from today's program.
What I really want, one most important thing is that don't limit yourself.
Okay.
In education and actually in life. You're capable of doing anything you set your mind to. It might take you longer than other people, but don't limit yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself.
Yeah.
So, Moment of Truth, do not limit yourself. So, thank you so much, Dr. Jim. I
Thanks.
really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about a career field. So, if you're watching, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much. We appreciate you watching. We also want to thank our viewers and our guests, and we also want to thank our producers, the safety, and of course our technician all over. We just really appreciate you guys. We also want to thank our supporters, Ashan Collections. And we also want to acknowledge our national head, Apostle Amakum, our regional head, Apostle Asemno, and of course our district pastor, Pastor Evis Boatin and Beatrice Boatin. Thank you so much for your support of the program. And of course, we also want to thank Aishadar Collection, Aishadar International Market. And we also want to thank, we have a couple of programs that are going on. We have a realtor program that is going to be happening in June 29th. And when the guest is going to be here, is going to be talking about his program. We also have an IT person who's also going to be talking about his program. And all of this is just part of the things that are going on in our community. And of course, it's Mother's Day this coming weekend. So we want to wish all the mothers happy Mother's Day, and everybody whose birthday is in May, we also want to wish you happy birthday. We are very blessed. The church is having activities this week. Friday is going to be the young adult of the church. We are going to be meeting here at Buttonville, Maryland. We're going to have the opportunity the young adults are going to be preaching, and they're going to be talking about, what it means. I think our theme this year is definitely talking about women being a living stone. So just think about, as a woman, you're a living stone. And then Saturday, we are going to have the women go and share tracks, and they have breakfast, and they have a Q&A section. And Sunday is going to be, the capsule everything. and we're going to have church service in every local area. So if you don't have a church, please shoot us an email or text us, and we'll tell you what are some of the churches around the area. We have early morning service, which is from 8 to 10, and of course the main church, and we have different locations around Maryland. So you're definitely welcome to access, and we'll definitely give you opportunity to be part of it. So thank you so much for watching the program, and until next week, as we continue with our career. So do you have anything to say, anything to our viewers?
No, nothing much. Just that I always say never give up.
Never give up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you set your mind to do it, be in life itself and education-wise. Because one thing I realized, without education, you can't make it.
So never give
The
up.
world is now so expensive. Yeah.
So never give up. So thank you so much. We thank you for everything. Bye.